Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine heirs. Today is September the 26th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar and 1441 on the ancient sun calendar and 2021 on the ancient Greco-Roman calendar or the modern civil calendar. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Article 3, Moroccan, Moorish American, court action. I am sovereign, living justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capitis nationall, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. My free chosen sovereign appellation is like to jury bay, in capitis nationall, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. We are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient, Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural divine, de jure, Moorish National Republic, federal government. We hereby exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, nunc pro tunc. So we want to further our discussion and also show an example, and it's actually the actual fiduciary document that I will be using for and placing on the public record. And it'll be placed on the public record today as well. For the fiduciary duties for the State of Morocco government, which is all of us. So the Moorish National Republic federal government is the government, and then the state or status, the state, that which creates our status aside from our bloodline and birthright, is the land of ancient Morocco. And so we'll be going into that document as well as breaking it down just a little bit further and clarifying some of the things that we've been talking about over the last previous two fiduciary sharing sessions and general assemblies. So, sovereign fiduciary authority and responsibilities, part 3. So we want to start off talking more about the monochrome ink and our affidavit, because we speak by affidavit. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So what did we discuss previously? We discussed the monochrome fonts, and a more expensive view of monochrome fonts is that, or monochrome letters, monochrome fonts, is that you can have red letters like what are on the screen, and a red letter is also a monochrome font. In other words, it's one frequency hitting the pupil of the eye and causing the eye to recognize that frequency as red. So let's talk about monochrome fonts, because in computer language, we hear them talking about fonts all the time. And on everyone's computer, when you go into any of the writing programs like Word or WordPad or Google Sheets or anything like that, you will see something that says font. And so I did a little bit of investigating into the difference between a font and a letter, because when we click on font, we see what we identify as letters, because that's what we've been told. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. are letters. That's what we've been told. So let's define font. Font is a noun, and the Latin is fons, F-O-N-S, fons or fontis, which means a fountain or spring. And So some of the definitions, and again, this dictionary that's being displayed on the screen, this definition comes from a dictionary. It's an 1828 unabridged Webster dictionary. And unabridged, this means that the newest definitions are the first couple of definitions, and then the oldest definitions are the last definition. So we can look and see that a font is a bowl, usually a stone, to hold the water used in baptismal services. What does that say? That's saying that when they put the word font up there on the computer screen, that it was a sea term, it was a water term when they used it. So they knew that as you were typing font, you were navigating the seas. Okay? That's why they use that term, because that's what it means. It also means a basin for the holy water used in symbolic washing on entering certain churches. So before you go into the holy place, you're supposed to wash. Okay? Well, before the holy word is spoken, we type it out on the computer, and it comes from within us first. That's the fountain part. Out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. The belly of a ship is the main. It's a ship. It's a part of the ship that holds all of the contents of the ship. The belly. So these are sea terms. Now, sea terms have a different meaning when we use them as opposed to when the courts use them. So let's look a little further. Number 3, font is a fountain or spring. So you've heard of a fountain pen. That's where that comes from. That's what they call it. That's why they call it a fountain pen, because it's the pen that all of the holy words come from. Number 4 is the one I want us to focus on. Number 4, a font is a source. It is the origin, the beginning. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. So yes, God used fonts. So when we think about fonts and the documents that we craft, who is it that's always been here from the origin of anything? Who is the source of everything? Who's the beginning and the end? The Moors, the sovereign, the God. So there are no coincidences in all that's been used, all that's been put in front of us. All we had to do was look it up and read it. And do some research and digging with an open eye. So some derivatives of the word font is something like fontal, which is a spring or a fount or a fountain. And then fontal it's an adjective. However, as you know, we deal with the noun. So source, origin, beginning. That's us. And that's why a font is definitely what we want to call it. Can we call it a letter? Sure, we can call it a letter. But we want to look at what letter means and what it's really saying when we call it a letter. Okay? Let's go to the word letter and see. Because, see, the word letter did not mean what we thought it meant, or maybe we didn't know the whole meaning of the word letter. I absolutely fell in love with the word letter just by looking it up. Why? Because letter is actually a being. Letter is one who lets. One who lets is a letter. We are the ones who can allow or deny, let something be or abolish it. We're the ones who can bind and loose, who can, the power of life and death is in our tongues. We're the letter. We're the ones who let. Well, what does let mean? Right up here, where it says letted right here. It's letted is a verb. L-E-T-T-E-D. It's a verb. And it says here it's obsolete. That means old, from way before. Obsolete past tense and past participle of let means to allow. However, the alternative past tense and past participle of let is to hinder. So we can let and let our letters either allow or our letters will hinder. And in some cases, when we write a letter, we want it to hinder. We want it to stop the fraud. But we have to use letters to do that. And then a derivative of letter as an adjective in law means lease or demise. And that's the same thing, allow to live or allow to die. To lease something means that you're allowing it to move by your authority. However, demise is you're allowing it to die by your own authority. So that's how important letters are. And believe it or not, the letter is the reason why we have either been bound or loose. And only we can allow our letters to do that. No one else can. If we see someone else's letters on a piece of paper and we consent to them by autographing them, then we agree to whatever they let or whatever they allow or whatever they hinder. That's been our issue. That's been the problem we've had, is signing other people's letters or paper that has their letters on them, as opposed to us putting our own letters on the paper and then having the letters mean what we say they mean. Now, letter, that word is also, there is a derivative word of letter that in the Latin is litter. So when we talk about a civil litter mortuus, that means civilly dead at law. What are we saying? We're saying that in the letter, they're dead because of the letters used. Either they consented to the letter or they were commanded. And when I say commanded, I'm talking about subjects, not us. So letter and litter, the French version of litter, are derivatives thereof. So now, when you talk about letter as a noun, they taught us that a letter was an inanimate something something that you write, or a letter in the alphabet. That's what they taught us. That A, B, C, D, E, F, G is a letter. A letter is so much more than that. One who lets, that means a letter can have life, depending on who's using it and how they're using it. But look at number 1, where this noun is concerned. Letter. A mark or character used as the representative of a speech sound. And this next sentence is so important because it is a key. It says, in English, and they put a capital E and the rest of the letters lowercase. In English, many words contain letters that are no longer pronounced. That means that corporate English is a fiction. That's why we don't use it. It's containing letters that are no longer pronounced. So when you're using corporate English, you don't know what you're saying. You don't know, because we don't know which ones are pronounced and which ones are not pronounced. And never once were we made aware of that while we were using corporate English. That's why it was important for us to take command of everything everything written, we take command of it, everything written. So that way we get to put our intention on it, and we define it because we're the Phoenicians. We're from the beginning. We are the font, the source, the beginning, the word. Imprinting a type or impression of a character of the alphabet. An impression is not the real thing. It is something that is made from the real thing, an impression. When you make an impression on someone, that means that you do something or do some action that gives them a picture of you. Number 3, a written or printed personal or business message usually sent by mail in an envelope. Those words that they're using in number 3 are all words at law. When they're talking about personal versus persona, in propria persona sui juris, they're saying some things there that the definition needs to be pulled apart. The words that they're using needs to be pulled apart. And then number 4, they say the first letter of the name of a school or college awarded or won for superior activity in sports, etc. Why do they say the first letter? Why don't they say all the letters? Because it's the first letter that determines the nature of the name. Okay, and in corporate English, the first letter is always capitalized. That determines the nature of the word. Who capitalized it? Did the Moors capitalize it, or did the corpses capitalize it? Because it's a dead word, no longer pronounced if the corpus did it. And then number 5 and 6 are just amazing. The exact or literal meaning. That's what a letter is. And think about this, Morris. If a letter is supposed to be the exact and literal meaning, why is English using words, many words that contain letters that are no longer pronounced? That's not exact. And that is why we hear ourselves and others say quite often, I don't have the words to express or to explain. Because we are far more complex than English can pronounce. Therefore, we spell it the way we want to spell it, and we give it our intention. Whatever we intend for our letters to say is what it's going to be. And that's very important when you're talking about crafting affidavits. So, number 6. There it is in big black, and I can't say black letters anymore, in big monochrome letters. Number 6 says, learning, erudition. Erudition? When you know the letters, when you know what you're looking at when you're reading something, you know who wrote the letters and what the letters mean. That's true erudition, even according to the corpses. The letter. Know the letter. How will we know the letters? We craft them. We write them. When we write them and we give it our meaning and we spell it the way we want to spell it, guess what? That's erudition. There it is right there. The word letter means erudition, when you know them and can use them to your advantage. And that's what this document today is going to be all about as well, is using the letters to our advantage in an erudite manner. So, number 7, an official document granting certain rights or powers as letters patents, which we talked about, land patents. Land patents have a particular type of lettering on them that we must correct. Letter of attorney. And we know we don't. The only letter we'll be writing to an attorney is an affidavit saying, no, thank you. Nope, we don't need that. Because we got it. We are the law. We don't need an interpreter to use a language that contains letters that are no longer pronounced. That's why we don't use attorneys. Unless they're moorishe. And attorney is spelled differently from that. So now we've been talking about fiduciary duties. And fiduciaries, which are all Moors are fiduciaries. All Moors are justices. All Moors are the law. All Moors are the government. All Moors are the heirs, the executors, ministers, claimants, the state of ancient Morocco. All Moors are the de jure government, and so on and so on and so on. Okay. So what is erudition when it comes to letters? A letter of advice. So we would use an affidavit, an advisory affidavit, a letter, and again, these are fiduciary duties right here. When you know how to use the letters, that makes you a competent fiduciary. So here, letter of advice, a letter notifying the receiver of a special fact, as that a bill of exchange has been drawn on him and that a consignment of goods has been sent to him. How do you draw a bill of exchange on someone? You must be competent with the letter. Competent with the letter. No one draws a bill of exchange on the Moors. No one. We stand as surety for no one. Here, now fiduciary, this is all about fiduciary duties, letter of credit. Well, we do creditor affidavit. It is a letter from a bank asking, and of course we don't ask, we give command, that the holder of the letter be allowed to draw specified sums of money from other banks or agencies to be charged to the account of the writer of the letter. We're going to go into that more clearly. We're going to take a specific class for that alone, that specifically. But we'll touch on it with the fiduciary letter, okay, the fiduciary affidavit, because that's going to be important. The language in that is going to be very important to gaining further access to the vast estate, okay? And then here, letters or letter of credence, and we would spell credence differently. A formal document which a country's diplomat representative carries as his credentials to a foreign government. Well, as we're dealing with one another, okay, because we know that the corporates are not a government, okay? But as we're doing government-to-government exchanges with other nations, we will be a letter, credence affidavit will come with all that we do, along with fiduciary documents. And it's exactly what's being said here. A document which, and it will, in this case, it will be an empire or a state diplomat, and we're not represented, so we're the actual diplomat, carries as his credentials to a foreign government. Or we can, and we'll talk about that some more too. Okay, I don't want to go too far into it right now. And then here, letters of marque or mark. This is mentioned in the Constitution specifically, letters of marque and reprisal. It says here, originally a government document authorizing an individual to make reprisals on the subjects or citizens of an enemy nation for injuries done him by enemy troops. That's going to be important as we proceed as well, because that's a fiduciary duty. And then B, later, and here in B, they're admitting that they changed the definition. It says later, a governmental document authorizing an individual to arm a ship and capture the merchant ships and property of an enemy nation. Okay, and we're not at war, so we'll definitely be adding some erudition to those letters. Okay, and here it is, letters patent, a document issued by a government to a person authorizing him to perform some act or to enjoy some privilege such as exclusive right to an invention, so called because the document is not sealed but open. And again, we seal all of our affidavits. So, of course, this will have to be, when we add things to our fiduciary duties, okay, we do letters, we do affidavits, patents, and that's going to be a fiduciary duty, okay? And then here, letters testamentary, it says, in law, a document granted after probate of a will by the probate court or some officer who has authority directing the person named as executor in the will to act in that capacity. So what we're doing, we're just looking now. Right now we're just looking at some fiduciary duties that we must update the language so that we can begin operating on our vast estate in a more fiduciary capacity, okay? And again, a fiduciary is a trustee. A fiduciary is one who can use instruments, and this is what a sovereign fiduciary is, one who uses instruments to accomplish things on the land, okay? Monochrome letters are instruments for us. Okay, monochrome letters are instruments for us. So now, and then it says letter as a verb transitive, to make hand-printed letters on, to mark with letters. And I'll say this, when they talk about a mark of the beast, okay, corporate letters are a mark of a beast. Corporate letters. In other words, if they craft it, it is from a beast. When we craft it, it's from the God. It is the word of God, the word from God. Absolutely. So now we want to take, I want to take a moment to, I'm going to put in the chat the link to the document, and it will also be under this video on YouTube at Like Tajiri Bay channel, and also on our Moorish National Republic Federal Government, which is spelled in ancient English, because there's another one out there that's not spelled in ancient English, and we honor them too, on that YouTube page as well, okay? Let me go ahead and put this link in the chat to that document so that you can have access to it. Please download it, study it, And when you look at the document and you study it, craft one for yourselves as you are led by the ancestral energy. Because, again, all Moors are the fiduciaries for the sovereign ancient state of Morocco. And you can craft yours however your study has indicated that you should craft it, okay? Some people don't like to use the word of. We spell it differently and we use it, okay, because it means what we say that it means, okay? So here, let me open the chat and put the link in. Okay. Just one moment. Okay. If you will go ahead and grab the link that's in the chat, I just put it in there so that you can have it. It's the link to the document that we're about to go over right now. Okay. And it's the fiduciary document. It's on. All right. Okay. Hopefully everyone has that, and again, it will be under the video as well. Just one moment. All right. Okay, and I'll leave the chat open as well. It's fine. Okay. So here is the fiduciary document, and as always, we start our documents with the court action language. State of Morocco fiduciary. And quickly we'll explain the state of Morocco is the state, it's the most ancient, most extreme west. It is Asia, it is Gaia, it is Earth, it is a Nexum, it is Northwest Africa, it is Turtle Island, it's the North Gate, it is the Maghrib Al-Aqsa, it is our land, our inheritance, and that covers anywhere that we plant our feet. So no matter where we go, we're still in the state or at the state of Morocco. Okay. So now Be it known that I, Pauline Denise Ritchie, and all Moors are the universal, sovereign, original, indigenous, ancient, natural, divine fiduciaries for the sovereign living state of and for ancient Morocco, also appellations as the Maghreb al-Aqsa, the North Gate, North America, Northwest Africa, Northwest Mexico, Turtle Island, and the most extreme west, among other sovereign land appellations. We are the fiduciaries for all land, all natural resources, and all commerce. Specifically, we are the fiduciaries for all fonts in capitis diminution nolo, to include all monochrome fonts in capitis diminution nolo, regardless of the resulting sensation that the eye manifests. Definitions and clarifications. Fiduciary is a noun, lawful and legal trustee, and we spell legal differently because it means what we intend for it to mean, and it does not mean anything corporate from the United States Corporation Company. A sovereign, living, natural ancient who competently and prudently takes care of lawful money and other assets and has for her sovereign use and at her will living subjects and or instruments to assist at all times. And of course, where we have her, you can put his as well for our sons whom we honor. Notice, regarding delegations of authority, while one can be assigned to carry, deliver, or retrieve a command, no one may use our sovereign identity, authority, nor sovereign status. So they can carry the things that's what you call an assign. They can carry it back and forth, an ambassador, okay? But we are us, and there is no other. It says, sovereign fiduciary duties and responsibilities are not limited to, but do include the authority to issue affidavits permitting the use of the State of Morocco sovereign credit. And again, all Moors have the ability to issue their own, the credit that is the State of Morocco, because we're all the State of Morocco. And when we're issuing credit, and we'll talk about that because that's where in the corporate world they use quote unquote letters of credit. Okay, we do something similar based on that meaning, except it's far more sovereign. Okay, because see, we've been letting people use our credit, but we didn't know they were using our credit. Now we know, so we have to competently let that. In other words, competently permit that. It needs to be permitted competently so that our sovereign status is not used. But that everyone in the process or in the exchange knows where the credit's coming from, where it's going, and what it's going to do. Okay. So, number 2, affidavits of credence. And we read what that meant. And more of these definitions, these words that we're using, look them up and do the study on them. And I don't have to say that, but I say it anyway because we are the study people. We study like our prophet said, so that we are competent to govern this vast estate. Affidavit of advice. We looked at that and what that means. Affidavit of marquee or mark and reprisal. Affidavit of patent. So remember we were looking at land patents a couple of months back, and I said that we were going to have to rewrite these and put them in red and all lowercase letters. We have to put them in the right letter. Now, we can even put them in monochrome. Okay, we can put them in a monochrome font. and monochrome being that which was formerly unlawfully called black. But it's not black because black means pale and dead at loss. Okay. So, affidavits of testamentary. We read about that. But again, we're going to dive into these responsibilities and duties of the sovereign fiduciary, because everything that we do as fiduciaries, we bring the whole state of Morocco and all its antiquity and all of our ancestors and everything with us. So we want to be competent as we do that. Okay? And then number 7, other letters in affidavit format: permission and legation or delegation. Now, we, in the past, we had discussed things like delegation of authority. But we didn't know what we were saying. We were first using English, that contains letters that are no longer pronounced or that no one knows how to pronounce. Okay? And then the word delegation has as its root word the word leg. And we know what legs do. Legs walk. Legs transport and get us from here to there. Okay? And that is literally what that word means. That means to take the legs out from under someone. You know how they talk about their sea legs when they get, out at sea and they can't stand up on the boat. They say, I need to get my sea legs under me. Okay. And then the word Allah, arm, leg, arm, head. So when we were saying, do you have a delegation of authority, when we were talking to corpses, okay, back in the day, saying, do you have a delegation of authority? I need to see your delegation of authority. Well, what we were saying was, I need to see that an ambassador was told not to come. Legation is the sending of an ambassador, which is a fiduciary duty. So we were saying, has an ambassador been sent? And really, what we were really saying in our spirit, even though we may not have known it, is, where is the consul or the ambassador or someone from my nation to assist with this? Because we were looking at foreigners going, I know you're not an ambassador for my nation. You're nothing like us. Do you have a delegation of authority? Well, when we give them a delegation of authority, we're really saying, you're not speaking for us. So we have to define those words in our affidavits and writs. We have to define those words, because the letters have not been what we were told they were. Delegation versus a legation of authority. A legation of authority is us saying, take this letter that I've given you, and whoever you give it to, they will know that you have, that letter gives some authority from me, the sovereign, or you, the sovereign, the Moors. Okay? You hear about the legation building, which on the Register of Historic Places, there's a building over in the Kingdom of Morocco, over the other Morocco. And it's called the American Legation Building. Well, what does that mean? You know what that means, Morris? That means that somewhere along the way, someone of us said, okay, we're going to give our authority, send an ambassador, and in other words, giving Morocco over there, the Kingdom of Morocco, the authority to do some things. So what did they do? They pretended to be us. They took the flag, and it wasn't this flag. It was a flag that has a green star, 5-pointed star, but their green 5-pointed star has a black border around it, a thin black border. So you have to really look at that letter because that's a letter too. It's a symbol. It's a letter. And then they called themselves Morocco. They called themselves Moors, and everybody thought, oh, well, and we've heard this said before, oh, the Moors left here dark, and when they came back, they were light-skinned. When they left here, their skin was dark brown. And when they came back, they're pale. So that's legation. That's why they were claiming that as a legation building. And it's listed as the first building on the entire historical registry of places, of historic places, the National Registry of Historic Places. Yes, this is Yezreel in the chat. The book, 10 Years of Secret Diplomacy, absolutely. Absolutely. That will tell you about how that all happened. And then if you all remember correctly, and you do, sometimes I still use terms like that from the corporate world. And so I don't mean to use those types of terms. But we remember when Hillary Clinton went to the Morocco over there and gave a little speech and did a few things, corporate diplomatic things. And what they were really doing was saying the Moors are waking up. That's really what was going on over there. That it's time that they're going to be waking up soon. So we're going to have to take that legation and do something else with it because it no longer applies. And then someone went to Al-Andalus and put it in place after Hillary Clinton did what she did. Then one of the Moors, a Moabitess, who was married to someone in the corporate world, went to Al-Andalus, to the Red House and put it in place. But it had to be a Moabitess, and she was even wearing a dress that was red, that was like our flag. So it's important that we know the language fiduciaries. We must do the studies. And again, we're going to assist one another through all of this. And it's nothing to even be, fearful of, because we're going to assist one another. And then we'll always have that jurisdiction can be invoked at any time, and it cannot be waived even by consent of both parties. That is on the public record. Okay? So we don't have to be afraid to start doing our duties here, And so let's add some clarification to monochrome. Monochrome is a noun, a singular burst of living energy, frequency, vibration, and sensation resulting from the stimulation of the retina of the eye by waves of light, previously unlawfully identified as black or dead corpse or U.S. vessel or U.S. corpse. So here, So now, font. It's a noun, and we talked about the font earlier. A noun, a source, the origin, the beginning, a fountain or a spring. Monochrome, let me go back to that for just a moment. What we see when we're looking at letters is a result of the frequency of our interpretation of the frequency that hit our eye, that came to our eye. And that's why they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because you can have two people looking at something, and depending on how they interpret the frequency that just came to their eye, if you vibrate at a higher frequency, then when high frequencies come to you, you will see things as beautiful. You will find the good in things. It's easy to do that because what we see has everything to do with our understanding and our interpretation. And that is why our intention is so important when we're writing documents. It's so that it means what we intend for it to mean. And guess what? No one can question your intention when it comes to a document. No subject can question that. No court can question that. Okay? Okay, Justice Jeremore put something in the chat. It says black equals, it means pale, bleached, or ashy, and he felt that that should be clarified. Pale, bleached, or ashy, yes. And as you can see, the letters that are on, the monochrome letters that are on the screen are not pale, they're not bleached, and they're not ashy. So why were we calling that black? Because someone said it was, but they meant dead at law. And who can bring the dead back to life? We did it for ourselves first by proclaiming our sovereign status. And again, we were never dead. We just gave the appearance of being dead. And then we spoke ourselves back to life, got ourselves up out of a state. And here we are. Okay? And then in capitis diminutio nolo, it's a noun. It is the highest status or state. No loss of status. Yes, Justice Israel Hiram Abyss. Yes. We did that. We did that. Okay. So fiduciary in capitis diminutio nolo. Remember the hybrid, not the hybrid. In the Black's Law Dictionary, it talks about in capitis diminutio minima, media, and maxima as being some loss of status, some loss of status. Well, what does that really mean? A loss of status is anything that's outside of us. Anything that's outside of us has a loss of status, unless it's another one of us, or unless we say this doesn't have a loss of status. Okay? And so that's where, moving forward, the fiduciary duty is going to be so important. Moors in the past, and we honor their demonstrations because we've learned from them. Some have done things like tried to trademark with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office the black, quote, and when I say black, I mean dead at law, name under the corporation. You can't, that cannot be done. And that's why no Moors ever just really did what they intended to do and lived the way they intended to live when they did that. Because you cannot trademark something dead if you have not competently stated that you have the authority to raise it from the dead and then use it. Because you can't use anything dead because we're the living. We can't use anything dead. We have to bring everything back to life, everything before we can use it. And that's what liens and court actions are all about. All rise and stand and remain standing. Bring them back to life. Then you can say, okay, do this, do that, etc. Okay? But as long as it was in a dead state, it was governed by the dead, quote unquote governed by the dead. And we know corporations can't govern. Corporations can't govern the living. So fiduciary responsibility is the highest standard of care in equity and law. The sovereign fiduciary governs with full use of the duty of care, the duty of loyalty, and the duty of good faith. And our loyalty and allegiance and our energy and our will and all of that is vested first in ourselves and each other and our government, and so on and so on and so on. Okay. The sovereign fiduciary takes care where full disclosure is concerned, where profit only by knowledge and consent is concerned, because fiduciaries can make a profit, but full disclosure must be made. And fiduciaries must take full care in overseeing that no conflicts of interest exist. And if you didn't see the conflict of interest at first and then you see it, you abolish it. Whatsoever you bind on earth is bound in heaven. Whatsoever you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. And that's actually what we're doing now, and what we've been doing is we thought we were citizens, we thought we were black, we thought we were all of that. That's a conflict of interest because we're the living. So what did we do? We abolished all of that. How did we do it? Competently. Place our nationality on the public record in red and all lowercase letters, because that is the frequency of the Savior. And then what did we do? Terminate all corporate contracts. Then what did we do? We liened that service corporation, and we liened all of their instruments that they were using, including those names that we thought were in black ink and capital letters. We liened all of that. Why did we lien it? Because the wrong authority, quote unquote, was claiming that it was theirs, and it's not theirs. Everything originated with us. We just have to call it what it really is, or else we're in error. And we don't want to be in error. We don't want to call ourselves black or African American or Negro or colored. That's an error. It is not competent. And we must be competent as we move forth. And we are, Moors. That's not even something that we're just going to keep studying and keep clearing our energy. As long as we keep our energy clear, we're going to remain competent. Our ancestors will be right there with us the whole time, because we are them and they are us. So, and we'll be talking more about financial things that have to do with finance. A question came in the chat a little while ago. Justice Mikael put in the chat, are we to use private banks? I would love for some other Moors to answer that question. Are we to use private banks? And then before we answer a question like that, we would need more clarification on what you mean. What is a private bank? And who owns a bank that we can't use? And who gave them ownership? Where's their legation of authority? Who owns a bank that we can't use on this land? Nobody that I know. But see, the point of the fiduciary is to be able to go into any bank or any place and use a monochrome font like this one here on the screen, But we must clarify the nationality of the font. Yes, fonts have nationality. Tables and chairs have nationality. Money has a nationality. Food has a nationality. Animals have a nationality when they're ours, because we just say, okay, you're naturalized. So they have the spirit of nationality by being naturalized. We can naturalize whatever we want to naturalize, because we created it all. It has to have our nature in order for us to use it. So these fonts that are on the screen here, in these monochrome fonts, anytime you use them, you need to clarify what they are. And all agents, principals, heirs, and assigns, and any derivatives thereof, to include this one in capitis diminutio minima and in monochrome font, and this, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capitis diminutio maxima and in monochrome font. Same thing here. I did it for my sovereign-born appellation and my free chosen sovereign appellation, because although these are not my sovereign-born appellation, they are derivatives thereof simply because I've nationalized them. How do we nationalize them? We lien anybody using anything that's a fraud or an impersonation of it. Lien them. Lien them, do a court action on them, and send them straight to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. and decapitate them. That means move them out of that office. Decapitation is removal from office. They've been holding an office that we did not consent to them having. So that's what we're doing. And then with every demonstration that you do, make sure that this fiduciary document is with your demonstration. So there are some demonstrations that are going to be, you know, a few documents, but it's worth it. Why is it worth it? Because this is our vast estate we're talking about. There's a reason why there were so many layers on top of our estate, so many corporate layers. They put a lot of corporate paper and corporate layers on top of things. Why? Because in order for them to do any of the stuff they're doing, they knew when we woke up we were going to peel back the layers. And we're just going to keep peeling them back and keep peeling them back and keep peeling them back and rebutting everything that was said. We could do this for another 1,000 years, you know. But that's what governing is. So these sovereign living instruments are hereby trademarked for, and again, trademarked for exclusive use by the sovereign living state of Morocco and no others. You see that, Morris? You see what we did there, where we're taking back everything that was stolen from us. Now, I see some things in the chat. Justice J. Michael. It says, since they have no real power, because this is all that, we love it. It says, he says, since they have no real power to authorize anything, period, because they're criminals, how can they trademark black all caps to do anything unless we are empowering them? They are lawfully non-existent, like in a novel. And then he said, you be the private bank. And why would we need to clarify anything to them? Are they going to grade us on our affidavits? Those are great questions. So we're not clarifying anything to them because they already know. They knew before we even woke up. who we were. That's why they were doing the things they were doing. That's why they kept saying, uh-oh, I can't move until I get a signature, so let me pull them over and get a signature so I can keep operating. They've always known. We're not telling them anything new. They already know. We're the ones who didn't know. So who are we really proving anything to? Ourselves. And then, listen, you said here, and these are valid, very valid questions. I appreciate them. And you said since they have no real power to authorize anything, period, how can they trademark black? We gave them consent. And here's the thing about black, Justice J. Black did not even mean what we were looking at. Black, in the corporate sense, is another one of those letters. It's a word that has letters in it that are not being pronounced properly. What is a pronouncement? A pronouncement is a proclamation or a declaration. Okay, remember the definition of the word letter. It said in English, it's some letters in the English language. There's some letters that are being used that are no longer pronounced. That's what they were saying. So the only way they were able to do anything is by our consent, by our agreement. And in reality, Justice J, they trademarked it, but all it took was for us to wake up, lean it, decapitate them. And when I say decapitate them, I mean corporations, because corporations don't come from anybody's womb. We're not decapitating people, because we love people. But we're taking everything that we need to take back so that we can operate on this land. It looks similar to what was being done before, but that's because what was being done before was a mimicry, it was a hypothecation, it was a subrogation of our sovereign status and identity. We had to take it all back. We had to. Because, see, here's another thing about what we're doing and the state of Morocco. The state of Morocco, until we competently declared it on the public record that is who we were and that we came together to do the things that we needed to do in order to state competently that we are indeed the ancient state of Morocco. Our ancestors said, do not give them access to that estate with everybody running around being independent and not working together and not stating and not speaking with one voice. So that's why it seems like people have been doing demonstrations and, you know, trying to get domiciles and trying to get stuff. And okay, because while they were claiming they claimed, quote unquote, claimed everything. But a claim has to be properly rebutted. And when the claim is properly rebutted, that claim is no longer valid, and the one with the proper rebuttal is valid. So with the black ink and capital letters, it's not even black, but that's what they told us in school. They said, look here, this is black. This is a black crayon. These are black letters. Didn't they tell us that in those animal schools? They did. They got to name it. So they named it incompetently. And so our job as the creators of all that there is, and we created all processes too, is to come back and say, no, everyone, that's not black, and neither are we. We're Moors, and that's monochrome. And everyone who was calling it black, you're lean. and we did it by court action. Okay? So it's important that we keep in mind that, you know, yes, Justice Israel, a corporate jurisdiction is a land of make-believe. Do you know what make-believe means? That means make them believe something that's not true. That's what the land of make-believe is. No different than Alice in Wonderland. Justice Israel, that is so true. That's so true. Make them believe it. We're not clarifying to them. You know what? We're also clarifying to our heirs so that they can look at the documents and see, oh, this is what Grandma was doing. This is what Granddaddy was doing. You know, this is what Uncle Jade was doing. You know. And then they'll look and see, okay, maybe I need to do this. Because think about it. If you could actually go back through your grandparents' and great-grandparents' documents and see some affidavits, what would that do for you? What would that do for you? When you could see that they got what they got by affidavit, and that if they didn't use affidavits, then things started to slip away. And that we needed to be a unified government. We needed to proclaim our statehood competently. That means that we're distinct from other states, including dead states. We're distinct from them. We look different because people look different from being dead than alive. So we have to look, sound, be different from them. Okay, so with regard to the private bank, again, fiduciaries go and do things with private banks. And yes, Empress Shatali says it's already trademarked, so you can't trademark a trademark. Period. Period. Islam. Let's see. Let me finish reading this last paragraph here. It says, I'll start from the beginning. These sovereign living instruments, and that's what these are here. These these monochrome fonts are sovereign living instruments. They are the beginning. A font is the beginning, the source. Where does it come from? It comes from us. These sovereign living instruments are hereby trademarked for exclusive use by the sovereign living state of Morocco and no others. These sovereign living instruments shall not be used by anyone without the express written agreement from the sovereign state of Morocco. No one represents the sovereign state of Morocco, and the state of Morocco does not represent nor stand as surety for any other. We are the living fiduciaries in capitis diminuto nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes at this time and at all points in time, nunc pro tunc. We are the sovereign, self-governing state of Morocco. We are the sovereign supreme jurisdiction. We're the law. We are Article 3. We are the government. And then this sovereign justice stands as law. And then we do sumus de sanctimunum, sumus de sanctimunum, sumus de sanctimunum. That means we are the holy ones in Latin. This sovereign justice, living justice, stands as law. So, let's see. In the chat, Justice Mikhail, he says, according to Black's Law 4th edition, private bankers are not incorporated, which leads me to ask that question and move forward. That's a great question, Justice Mikhail. That's a great question. When you spell private the way you want to spell it, You're the fiduciary of the bank, and guess what? You are the bank. We are the bank. And that's private or public, depending on how we spell it and what we're trying to accomplish, or what we are going to accomplish. But in order to be the bank, whether it be private or public, we need to be in the status of statehood. That means in the proper state. That means all of us coming together and saying we're together. Statehood is the key to all of the fiduciary duties being honored. Because we're going to put it in our language, ancient English. And for those who who have not adjusted to ancient English yet, it's okay. Just do your documents in red and all lowercase letters, and every now and then add an E on the end of a word that has, a consonant at the end, or etc., so that your national expression is it manifests on the document. Why is that important? Because jurisdiction is in the language. Jurisdiction is in the language. And the reason we look things up and look things up and look things up is because we want to know, okay, what does this mean? And let's make sure that we establish what it means in the sovereign jurisdiction. Yes. Justice J, yes. State of Morocco. Those are great questions. Justice J, Justice Michael, and those who put the statements in the chat. Yes, Empress Shatali, she says all that we are doing is the self. We don't lack knowledge anymore, and that's me saying that. We don't lack knowledge anymore. And she said this is why we're doing what we do. Yes, because everything originated with us. Everything started with us, Islam. Are there any other questions or comments about what we have done so far? I am trying to slow things down some so that we get a good, clear explanation, and so that it doesn't seem like we're rushing through things so quickly, because we want to make sure. And we'll be going back over all of this again. We'll be going back over it so that we can just continue with clarification and expansion of all that we need to clarify and expand on as we continue to possess the vast estate. And here, one last thing that I'll say about the state of Morocco. Okay, we proclaimed our statehood on the public record. The state is the power and the authority where international law is concerned. Okay, so with international law can only be invoked if you are a state, a distinct state of your own. And a state is, from what I understand, and I know this to be true, there you need at least 500 sovereigns to come together and say, we're going to have our own distinct everything. Distinct language, distinct economy, resources, etc., etc., etc. And so that's what we've done, and we're going to continue to use the power and the authority of the state of Morocco, the ancient state of Morocco, to further the empire. Okay? That is our goal. That's why we're here. That's why we proclaimed statehood and did all the things we needed to do in order to accomplish that, is so that we can further the vast estate. That is our number one priority. The matriarchs who birth the heirs, that is an action of furthering the vast estate. Every time an heir is born, the estate is furthered. It grows. And then we are pushing forth with the land, the resources, and all that, and the commerce. That is pushed forth through the state, Islam. Are there any other questions or comments in the chat? I don't see. Let me see. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat as well. And then also, I'm going to take just a moment and open the floor. And you can unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment of any kind, if you want to bring forth. Islam, I yield the floor.
There is no vast estate.
I yield the floor to the Moors. I should have been more clear.
They bring the comedy every week.
Islam. Okay, Islam. With that being said, we will go ahead and adjourn here until Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. And
Islam, I'm sorry.
Peace and grace. Islam, Empress.
I just want to put out there that I am behind on paperwork, possibly, but I do want to do a court action, so I was looking for some counsel and somebody to be a co-judge for me. So when I do my liens and court actions, I'll have somebody assist me. So I did put that out there on Facebook that I needed that help, but I'm asking here right now, too, just in case somebody has some extra time just to help me get my paperwork in order and do a court action.
Oh, okay. Anyone want to step forth and assist the Empress? Empress, do you want to give your email or your put it in the chat rather, your email or your or contact?
Yep, I'll put my email.
Okay, Islam. All right. With that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, and indigenous.
Yeah, that's some funny shit there, Pauline.
Go back to your cage.
Grand very
Grand rising, Islam.
That was some funny shit tonight. Oh my God.
Hey, man, I need the numbers.
Peace and love.
Peace and love. Peace and love, brothers. I have no words. Peace and love.
Islam.
I'm going to beat you and tell you up. How you putting stuff out there? And our brothers are here to help.